Now, as we know, over COVID times, we've all gotten very much used to the idea of remote work, and it's posed a challenge for some people, but ultimately it has been extraordinarily successful. So Atlassian did a report, and it's based on a lot of the data that they're getting through their own solution, the Jira solution and so forth. But what they found with this report is that 68% of people had better job satisfaction when they were working remotely. And weirdly, 80% felt closer to their teams. And importantly, 73% felt more satisfied with their leaders. And what is really interesting is that what they were able to tell based on how people were using their platform is that we were working an extra 34 minutes a day. So this feels like a massive win-win. It feels like one of the biggest changes in the workforce ever, frankly, because I think what we know is that you can actually build relationships, some quite good relationships and deep relationships, remotely. But we recognize that it is difficult to take those to a greater level and so forth. And so I think what many organizations are trying to do is how can we work in a hybrid way? But I don't think you have to. I think that it is entirely possible. And so there are a number of organizations out there, particularly a number of the tech companies, who've said that, you know what, we are now work from anywhere. So you don't have to come to the office. And so I think there's a real challenge there for those more traditional organizations who want to return to more line of sight management. So I do ultimately believe it is possible to lead high performance remote teams. And in looking at the successful ones around the world, I've come up with what I'm seeing as the 4 C's. So culture, communication, community, and collaboration. If we look at culture, so in order for remote working to be successful, it has to be culturally acceptable. So that means it has to be led from the top, has to be very clear that as an organization, you embrace remote working and you will support your remote workers. And in some organizations who I've been working with, they actually send people a desk. In fact, in one case, you get a desk, and when you join, you get a desk which you can set up at home, a whole range of paraphernalia to help set you up at home. Other organizations just give you a check and say, or a check, showing my age, just give you some money, $800 or something like that, to get your home office ready. So those are organizations which have very much a culture of saying, yeah, we recognize the benefits not only for the employee, but also, frankly, for the employer. Think of those engagement stats that we just saw. And frankly, who doesn't think that an extra 34 minutes a day from your workforce wouldn't be helpful? So you need a culture. You then need communication. So remote working is incredibly tough on leaders because you have to be very diligent with the way that you communicate. And you can't just be transactional. It can't just be like, an email, you do this, et cetera, et cetera. It's very transactional. So communication has to be very thoughtful. There has to be a rhythm, a cadence to the communication. So regular team meetings. And the communication needs to be not just about work things, but rather it needs to embrace the social and emotional sides of things. And in fact, I think what happens with remote, and one manager who I was speaking to recently said they found themselves really enmeshed in their employees' lives. And so, there's obviously needs to be a natural limit to the extent to which you do that. But I think, as we saw from the Atlassian stats, 80% of teams felt closer, even though they were not physically proximate with each other. And that's, I think, due to good communication, regular communication that's happening. Because what you've got to build, frankly, is a sense of community. Because if you are all working in the same office, you get that community. It just happens because you happen to be going to the water cooler at the same time. You happen to be going to the kitchen. And so you drop by someone's desk. That is just a natural community forms. In a remote work sense, you actually have to work at that community. And so you do that by communication, obviously, and also by different channels. So you might set up, you know, a WhatsApp group or some other social media group, which allows the group to share things that are informal, that are social. So trying to create that sense of community so that people know about each other. And ultimately what you need to do is you need to use the technology to allow extraordinary collaboration. Now this is a photograph of some of the happiest people I have ever seen. I have never, ever spoken on a Zoom call where the people are this happy to be on the Zoom call. So I'm not sure what place this is, but I think we all should go and work there. But you know, what we can do is we can use the technology. There's a lot of collaboration tools, and we need to embrace them, and we need to use every aspect of them. So we need to use the breakout rooms, we need to use the chat, we need to use the Q&A. So I implore people, if you want to manage high-performance remote teams, you've really got to engage with all of the communications platforms, and that may include Trello, Jira, Slack, all Teams, all of these other solutions. Embrace them, understand what they're capable of, and maximize the utility from them.